Hi, and welcome to Vibes Daily. This is a daily devotional curated by Vibes Church to help you practice the way of Jesus and be all that God has called you to be. You have joined us for our year-long series titled Devoted. Acts 2:42 tells us that the followers of Jesus were devoted to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, to breaking of bread, and to prayer. This podcast was created to provide context and commentary for what you read each day. Just before our friends begin discussing today's reading, we want to invite you not only for fellowship, but for prayer as well. We have created the Vibe Daily Chat Group to offer you fellowship and a community where you can state your observations, ask questions about the reading or the podcast. You can join us by downloading the Vibes Church app in your favorite app store. Click Join the Conversation and join us today. And finally, we hope that you can join us for prayer. Prayer happens Monday through Friday, and more information on that can be found on the Vibes Church app under prayer. Now, let's begin our conversation on today's reading.
Yo, welcome back to the Vibes Daily Podcast. It is day 214. We are here back in our devoted series where we are going through the entire Bible from Genesis to Revelation. I am back again with my wife Victoria, my son Judah, and we are here to pick up in the middle of Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 37 is where we are picking up, and it continues the story we started yesterday, kind of at the end. Chapter 36 talked about this king of Assyria who comes to essentially make a threat on Judah. And last we left off, the people of Judah did not respond to the threat because they had orders to be silent. And so we kind of pick up here in chapter 37. As a reminder, this is a story that we have read twice before. Second Kings and Second Chronicles also refers to this. But maybe there's some new insight God gives us as we read through it in Isaiah. Anything stick out to you here in chapter 37?
Yeah, I do appreciate the Lord stepping in verse 7. The NLT says, "Listen, I myself will move against him." In the CSB it has, "I'm about to put a spirit in him." And but yeah, just the fact that the Lord's like, "I'm gonna handle this, and I'm gonna handle him." It was just wild to me because when we talk about kings against kings, I mean the Lord says he's the Lord of armies and the King of kings, and so I'm just you literally make him do what you want him to do. You say it's going to happen, and it happens just like you said it does. And so I think it's crazy that God can say something and then it happens for sure.
Yeah. And we'll see that here in a little bit and just exactly how it plays out. But it goes back to what we read yesterday where, God said, "I will rise.
Will.
I will exalt myself. I'll be lifted up." And so, he says that through essentially through Isaiah's message here. And I think, again, you called out yesterday that it was still a big deal that Hezekiah goes to seek Isaiah's counsel, essentially, right? That when he hears the report and when he is saddened or afraid, rather than, as we saw with Israel, who went to Egypt,
yes,
right, to try to create these alliances, right, and whatnot, that instead he goes to Isaiah or goes to the Lord, but through Isaiah. So I think again there's a contrast there, and we see that works out differently for him, right, than it does for Israel specifically. And I think that's a big deal because if we recall when we went through Kings and we went through Chronicles, Hezekiah was kind of an exception to the norm as far as his devotion to God and him following God, right? Most of those other kings did evil in the sight of the Lord.
His father and his son.
So it's just it's so interesting. Right, exactly. His dad and his son weren't good. So I think it's interesting that the timing of this, right? Because I feel if Assyria came before Hezekiah or after Hezekiah, then Judah probably would have been conquered.
Exiled.
right? But because they came when Hezekiah was king, right? So like even that kind of shows God's providence, like some of his plan and his timing, that it was like once he had someone in place that was dedicated to him, is kind of when all this goes down, right? So I don't know. I just thought it was interesting, just when you contrast it to like what happens around him.
Yeah. And I like you said, he is like an exception, because like even when he goes, like the remorse, like this prayer that he's praying to the Lord in verse 15 or 14 and on, but like this prayer is really like heartfelt, right? That like, yeah, like, but acknowledging them, like verse 19, they have thrown their gods into the fire, for they were not gods, but made from wood and stone by human hands. So they have destroyed them. Now, Lord our God, save us from his power, and that all the kings of the earth may know that you, Lord our God, you alone. It was like still this exaltation of who the Lord is, versus like, buckling, like in despair. But it was like a call for God to rise up and show who you are. Like, no, these were never gods, right? Like these gods that the king came and started like talking about, like, hey, these are couldn't like save these other nations. And Hezekiah is like acknowledging like they were not gods in the first place.
Yeah.
You're the God, but like rise up and prove yourself for your own sake, pretty much. I just love his heart behind it. Like this reverence of the Lord when he comes.
Yeah.
And if I was like to just note in verse 21, it is because he prayed like this that God came to his rescue. I love it. It says, Lord God Israel says, because you prayed to me about King, I'm not even going to try and say his name, of Assyria, this is the word the Lord has spoken against him. And then I love that verse 23, like once again, the Lord is bucking up, like, and he's just like, well, who have you mocked and blasphemed? Against whom have you raised your voice and lifted your eyes in pride? Against the Holy One of Israel. So then, of course, the Lord is vindicating himself here. Like, this is me you came up against.
Yeah, and that's good. I also get to this a little later, but yeah, I think one of the things that Hezekiah's life teaches us in general is just like that prayer works, right?
Yeah.
And that prayer can move God, essentially, right? Like, does it always? No. God's sovereign. He's in control. He decides what he wants to do. But I think Hezekiah proves that, like, there is a point in praying. Like, there is a reason to pray, right? Like, it's not this thing that, like, yeah, we pray, but ultimately God's going to do what he wants to do anyway. Because as you said, right, it tells us, because you prayed to me, this is what happens. And then even when you go to later in the next chapter, we know that it's his prayer that ultimately helps Hezekiah to recover from illness as well. So, I think it's a good call out that prayer works. And we see that the evidence of that in Hezekiah's prayer specifically. Yep. What I was going to add though, what I was going to say before you kind of brought up the prayer piece, is that, like, what did stick out to me, as you pointed out in verse 20, was that, like, all the kingdom of the earth may know that you, Lord our God, like you alone is kind of the purpose.
Yeah.
Because even when you get down to verse 35, it says, I will defend this city and rescue it for my sake.
Right.
And then for the sake of my servant David. But like, it's clear that, like, God also, like, God does this not just because he loves Judah, but, like, honestly, Judah doesn't deserve it. He really does it because it tells everybody who he is, right? Like, back to that verse, I'm gonna elevate, I'm gonna do it myself, I'm gonna elevate myself, I'm gonna lift myself up. That, like, I don't know, the part that was clear to me is that, like, he does it for his own glory, and to lift himself up, so that others know who he is. Kind of is the bottom line to me as well. But was there anything else in 37 that just jumped out to you?
Yeah, I think 29 or 28 and 29, once again, it was kind of like pointing out the arrogance of Assyria. But once again, like the Lord making clear that he's the one who like orchestrates its path, you know.
Yeah,
And
it's pretty disrespectful. The like, I would put a bit in your mouthpiece. Like
for real, like
you're just
a horse.
you're a horse.
You're a horse.
Okay, like I control you. You are a beast, a simple animal
Yep.
that I can control and domesticate as I see fit.
Yep. Yeah.
That's rude.
Bars.
Yeah. Like God is an elite trash talker.
The first and the last.
Yeah, like elite trash
No,
talker.
he is so
Like Muhammad Ali level, going into a battle, into a boxing ring level trash talker.
Yeah. Yeah. No, like he gets pretty disrespectful and he's very creative.
Yeah, I'm saying like I'll put a hook in your nose and my bit in your mouth, and I will make you go back the way you came.
You filthy animal. You should just put that at the end.
You should have added that part. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's elite trash talk.
It is.
Like,
Listen, if you really want to take notes,
I'm just saying, like, y'all gonna see that in the next like WWE promo.
Yeah.
Like, The Rock gonna come out and say that.
I know, right? I wonder how much like good stuff you can get from the Bible, like in terms of like.
Yeah, people wouldn't even know because nobody reads the Bible, so they wouldn't know.
True.
But
True. They think you're all original.
yeah,
They
but
would. But I'd give God the glory though, because I want him coming after me, taking his words.
give his credit, give him his due. Elite
Listen,
trash talker.
and you give him the glory because
Yeah.
he's serious about his glory.
That's true. This is true. Yeah, we're not playing there. But yeah, I mean, end of 37, we see kind of how he does it, right? Starting at verse 36, this angel of the Lord comes in. He strikes down 185,000.
Which is crazy.
It's a lot of people for Judah to just wake up and find that. Like, literally, the people get up the next morning,
Just get up. Rise
and
and
there
shine.
are 185,000 dead bodies.
That don't make no sense. First of all, ew. Secondly, like I remember them talking about some like mass slaughters that were happening, like in the battle was intense and it was a big slaughter, you know, and it'd be like 35,000 dead, right? Like 57,000 lost, you know, but to wake up into 185, like he was not. That angel was in there just. I don't know what he was doing, but it was something like that.
We're gonna break the fourth wall here. Hey Google, how many people live in the city of Columbia? 100.
Whoa.
That's more than this entire city. 140,000 people in the capital of South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. 140,000. There's still 45,000. Hey Google, we're done. We're done talking, Google. 45,000 more people than the city of Columbia. This whole city, like literally, like just can you imagine if you
And
woke
the
up?
outskirts, right?
Yeah, include us here in Blythewood as well.
Yeah,
and,
Blythewood, Irmo,
get everybody,
Everybody.
get all of them. Cause like, can you imagine if you just woke up in the morning and like there's a tweet that's just like, "Yo, Columbia's dead, y'all."
The entire city.
Just
Nobody knew what happened. That's the thing. Like that's the crazy thing. It wasn't like a bomb. Wasn't it's dead.
Columbia died. Could you imagine?
Nope.
That's what the angel of the Lord did.
Crazy.
There were all these dead bodies. I'm like, that is insane.
That's what the Lord does for his name's sake.
I don't know. All right. Sorry. That's just I had to put that in perspective. That's a lot of people. But
Absolutely.
let's go to 38 because we got a couple more chapters to get to. I would stay on that all day. That's just what God is capable of. But 38 is another kind of a famous story. Again, we've read twice already, but just another repeat. Hezekiah gets sick to the point of death. He's expected to die. Matter of fact, Isaiah tells him he will die. But Hezekiah prays and he asks God for favor and to extend his life. And he does just that. What stuck out to you about 38 this time? Anything in particular? as you read it in his prayer as well, which kind of, um, yeah, anything that just sticks out to you.
Yeah, I just love this like assurance that the Lord has given to Hezekiah. Um, especially like you said, like this whole verse 6, like I will rescue you in the city from the grasp of the king of Syria. I will defend this city. I don't know, it was something about that language there. Like, oh, I will defend this city for you. But yeah, so I thought it was really interesting because like I thought it was humbling that he would say, like, Lord, like remember how I walked before you faithfully, wholeheartedly. The Lord tells him that he was going to defend the city, but then like, and I thought it was like like wow, Hezekiah is like really humble and like genuine in this moment. But I wasn't sure because by the time I got to the end of 39, and I'm jumping ahead, but by the time he gets to 39, he's just like, well, it's not going to happen to you. It's going to happen to your sons. And he was like, cool. I was like, because I've read this before, I was reading his prayer and stuff a little differently. Like, was your heart really genuine? Like, was it? I mean, I know it was. I'm not going to say it's not. But like the way that he was switch was just like, Lord, do it for me. Do it for me, Lord. And he was like, wow, I'm going to do it for you, but not for the rest of y'all. And he was like, bet. That's still all right with me.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah. But I think it's so like us, like when we are in the point of desperation, right? Like we are so grateful and we're so like humble and so in need of the Lord, right? We probably could write, great poetry in this time, in our low points, or when he does something miraculous for us, right? We're so grateful. But like, it's just like us that gratitude wears off so quickly for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we'd be so grateful, and then the next thing comes to us, and we'd be upset.
Yeah.
Right? Or whatnot. But like, because ultimately, I mean, it's his pride that gets him in trouble, right?
Yeah.
When we get to 39, if we could just take those two chapters together, like it's his pride that causes him to show Babylon
everything,
all of his kingdom and everything that they had, right?
Yeah.
Like, and literally, like the gift comes because he is healed, which that's just so interesting. Like, he gets healed, Babylon hears about it, and they're like, oh, let's send him a gift because he's been healed. Like, I heard he's recovered. That's awesome. And like his response isn't like, yeah, let me tell you about my God who healed me. It's like, let me show you my palace. Like, let me show you all the stuff I have, instead of like, let me tell you about my God who healed me.
Yeah.
And I just, I feel like it's you just missed an opportunity. He really did. To really just give God the glory, and ultimately that became his downfall.
Yeah. That speaks to me. How many times I've missed an opportunity talking about stuff that don't matter. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, but I think it was interesting though that like when he got sick, he considered that he was like in the prime of his life. Now, I don't know how old he was at that point, but he was like, I guess you could probably like
do some math or some sort of go back to Kings. Yeah,
exactly. But he was just like, yeah, I'm in the prime of my life. Why should I die now? And it did put in perspective to me, like, we just never know when we're gonna go. Like, we just never know. And the fact that like he had done all these things, God had done all these things, God was on his side, right? Giving him favor, protecting him, giving him, letting him have these riches that he didn't show the Assyrians. Like, he had all this stuff, and God's behind him. Yet he felt like God was going to be taking him too early, and it wasn't like he had lived a full, long, grown, old age, right? That like he considered himself in his prime. So it's like, oh, I could be walking with the Lord, and the Lord on my side. That does not mean that I'm going to have gray hairs at the end of this life, right? Like, now my life could end before I perceive it to be like time.
Yeah. I already have a couple gray hairs, so I think I made it. I made it. The kids like to point it out.
Anyways.
To show me the white hairs in my beard.
Those are recent.
Yeah, so I've made it. I made it to old age.
Okay.
Got there. Yeah. Okay. I don't know anything else in 38, 39 that stuck out to you.
Mm, I do think it was interesting the way that they healed him.
Mm-hmm.
In verse 21, it's like, let them take, some figs and apply it to his affected skin so that he could recover. I think it was interesting because, like, what God uses to start the healing process is interesting.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to chapter 40, which is our last chapter today. And it actually starts kind of a second part of Isaiah. So last week I kind of mentioned early that Isaiah is kind of considered to be broken into two parts. So 1 through 39 is kind of God's judgment and a lot of like historical during the lifetime of Isaiah type of language. And chapter 40 starts kind of this future prophecy of like the Messiah to come and some future hope and whatnot. So it's going to kind of be a shift in some of the language we'll read and some of what's happening here. And probably an awkward transition to this as our last chapter today, but it does kick off kind of a new section that we'll speak more about tomorrow and the rest of next week. But it starts with just God's comfort in chapter 40. What sticks out to you here in this chapter?
Yeah, I think it's so funny how like I can kind of recognize some of these prophecies as we're reading through it, but if I didn't have stuff like the Chosen or like stuff that has over the years, or even it's like the New Testament to like point out some of these things, I would probably like, who would have known that these were prophecies being fulfilled? So so like verse 3 jumped out for me immediately because this voice crying out, prepare the way of the Lord in the wilderness, make a straight highway for our Lord God. In the desert is, like John the Baptist language here, where he was supposed to be preparing the way for Jesus. And so I thought that was the first thing that jumped out for me.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that wouldn't even stick out. To me, it just started with just this comfort. I don't know, man. Like, comfort is it's a word that like I don't say this means so much to me, but like I'm always looking for like God's comfort, right? Like I think it's something that it's what I need in times of sorrow. It's what I need in times of like difficulty or depression or anxiety. Like there's something about just comfort, and it communicates this just God who cares. I don't know. I could just always imagine like, I think about our kids and like when they're hurt and like all they really want is just like a hug and a touch and just like a acknowledgement that it happened, right? Like, they just want to come and you hold them for a second and just say, I know it hurt. Right. Like, and just how powerful that is. And I feel like it to me just sets up what this next section of scripture in Isaiah is about, that it's like, it really is that for the people of that time, for us, it's going to be this message of just like, I know it's hard and I know it seems like everything is going wrong. Yeah. But I'm here and I care. And just come draw closer. So just, I don't know, like that, just starting with that stuck out to me specifically.
Yeah, I do. I think I love a good news story, right? Like, and there is a whole lot of like, I think in verse 9, Zion, herald of good news, like go up on the high mountain, Jerusalem, herald of good news. Like, to me, like that sticks out because I'm just like, yeah, we need some good news. After all of this, like, it is refreshing, and I'm happy for Isaiah. Okay, I'm happy for you because you got to share some really good news and some prophecies of the Messiah and others too, but like that were not just despair, destruction, and swords with fat on them.
I was kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but there's a couple phrases. This actually was kind of said a little earlier too, but just this, have you not heard? Do you not know? Like this, I don't know, just that phrase for whatever reason, I really love. And I mean, he says a couple things thereafter, but just like the fact that he keeps using this phrase, just like, don't you know about me? Like, don't you know who I am?
Right.
And so I don't know. I just love that. And then for verse 18, with whom will you compare God? What likeness will you set up for comparison with him? Just this reminder, like there's just no one like our God. I thought was good. And he says that again in kind of verse 25. Right?
Yeah. It's so funny. I didn't even see it in 18, but for some reason it stuck out in 25 for me.
Yeah.
That's good. Oh, I love that. I love keep going to 26.
Okay.
It's like, look up and see who created these. He brings out the stars by number. He calls all of them by name. Because of his great power and his strength, not one of them is missing. I do think of it like, wow, like the things that he says he knows by name, right? Like that, so much detail.
Yeah.
Which is incomprehensible because we know like the stars is like, nobody really knows how many stars there are, but they're not lost to the Lord.
Yeah.
Not a single one of them.
Yeah.
And whether this is like referencing angels or just specifically just stars, right?
Yeah.
Like, I appreciate it.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah.
And then, there's the ever so famous verses, 29 through 31 here, kind of at the end. And I even started just back at 28. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the whole earth. He never becomes faint or weary. There is no limit to his understanding. He gives strength to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Youth may become faint and weary, and young men stumble and fall, but those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on their wings like eagles. They will run and not become weary. They will walk and not faint. Like, again, it's just a beautiful passage that, again, is quoted so often. But I think what stuck out to me about it is I don't think I've ever backed up to 28 much when I read it. And the fact that it's like God is the one who never becomes faint or weary. And so when I now read verses 29 through 31, it's like God who is passing on that endurance and that strength to you that he has himself, right? Like,
that's so good.
Like because I didn't read that piece before or just never paid attention to it. Like, it just stuck out to me that it's like, it's not just those that wait on the Lord will renew their strength, their mind. It's like, no, they'll be able to do that. And the reason they're able to do it is because they can tap into the source that does not, get weary and does not faint. It's God's nature to be enduring and to persevere and to be everlasting. And it's because we can tap into that we have that same ability and that same strength. Like, so I don't know. It just stuck out to me different, that it was like this transfer of energy and endurance and perseverance that God gives us from his own strength. I thought was interesting. But
that's really good. I'm glad you made that connection for me. Because I had even backed up to 27. I hadn't strung them together like this. But what stuck out was in 27 was just like, why do you say like my way is hidden from the Lord and my claim is ignored by my God? I think it's like, even thinking about this weary or faint person, somebody who is like needs that extra strength, like even here it's kind of like why can you say like in NLT the Lord does not see your troubles, right? That like, how can you say your God ignores your rights? Like, sometimes you be like so tired, I'm like, Lord, where are you? Like, don't you see me? But it's just knowing that like even in our weariness he sees us. But if he hasn't given us the strength and we're calling on him, it's because he doesn't need to give us the strength right now, right? Like he's trying to test us or show us something or prune us or mature us in some type of way or teach us or something. Yeah. That like even in my weariness, it's not because he's not listening. It's not because he doesn't care. It's because it's necessary. And then when I do call on him though, like when it's time, he's going to give me what I need.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't probably have what I need. I just don't know it. Right? Like, I want more. Like, yeah, I got some help. Yes, Lord, but I don't want to feel anything. I don't want to struggle at all. But yeah.
It's good. Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of today's reading. We'll pick up on chapter 41 tomorrow. But again, appreciate you guys joining us. Hopefully this is helpful. Again, as you read along, offer some additional insight and context to what you are reading. Share your own thoughts, ideas, observations, questions with us wherever you are watching us or listening to us. And again, hopefully this is of benefit and value. But thank you again for joining us at the Vibes Daily Podcast. We look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. But until then, take care.
Thank you for joining us for the Vibes Daily Podcast. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or download our favorite, the Vibes Church app. Visit vibes.church/devoted for additional episodes, notes, details, and the latest merch. Join us next time as we continue our journey through the Bible. Take good care.